the section, or what I wanted to talk about, are the things that we forget. So it's similar to what we were talking about yesterday, actually. So it might be a way of thinking of it as like a sequel. So what you see here is a theme that repeats in many books of the Bible, which is basically about when the people of God get lost and then God punishes them and they lose what used to belong to them in the first place. So when you look at verse 4, you can see that this is describing what God's describing as what's going to happen once they realize what they have lost. So it says, the people of Israel and the people of Judah together will go in tears to seek the Lord their God. They will ask the way to Zion and turn their faces toward it. Okay, so uh, that's kind of strange because it's like you were somewhere else in a different city and you have to go back home and you need to ask somebody how to get back home. Now, we might not know how to get to different places, but most of us generally know how to come back to our own house because that's the road we travel the most. But in this example, you can see that Judah and Israel are at such a loss that they don't really even know how to get back home. So something has been erased from them that's very, very important because if you don't have a house or a home, then what do you have, right? That's the most important part of every person's identity. So in this scenario, you can see that not only did they lose their nation because they've been wiped out and sent off as exiles, not only do they lose their identity, because without your nation, you're not a people belonging to a nation, and not only do they lose their God as a result of all those things, this is not really a present tense kind of tragedy. So, for example, let's say that you got into your car today, you turned the engine and it says there's no oil. So you can't drive today. So you might be very upset. Oh, today I'm having a bad day. My car is not working. But the truth is that's not a tragedy for the day. It might have started a while ago when your car was using up its oil, but you never replaced it, right? You never took care of the problem. So today you have a problem, but the problem didn't start today. It started a long time ago. But to you, it's about today. Today I have a problem. This is a huge tragedy. Everything is taken from me, but we don't see the connection between our past and our present. Most of the time, we divorce those things from each other. We don't see it on a continuity or on a line. We think that's happened in the past, this is the present, and in the future, I don't know what's going to happen. So those are, to us, three separate things. But you can see here that what's been erased from their past is what gives the Israelites the problem here. Once they had the city, which is Zion, and it's the holy city. So the city is not just their protection, it's also their provision because God had given them this thing, and it belonged to them. And as long as they were connected to their God, their city was strong and protected. But now you can see that they're very lost. So when they want to come back, they'll have to ask the way to Zion and turn their faces toward it. So you can see that Daniel does this in the book of Daniel when he prays every day, that even though he's in Babylon, he gets up and he opens his windows and he faces the direction of Jerusalem. Now you can see today Muslims do this. So when they pray, they face the direction of Mecca and Medina. So the assumption is, of course, first of all, that you would know the direction of your holy city. Also that you're far away from it. So you're trying to connect yourself to that. But if you don't know anything about your holy city, about your God, you forgot all those things and left it in the past. Now, if you're trying to find your way, well, you won't really know. For example, if you're a Muslim and you want to find out where's Mecca and Medina, now you will have to use a compass to see which direction would it be in, right? Because you don't know. You haven't been praying at all, so you have no idea where this is, even though it's important. It's been a while since you connected with that, so you have lost this thing. So that kind of a GPS that connects to Zion was exactly what they had lost. Now, you can see it says they will come and bind themselves to the Lord in an everlasting covenant that will not be forgotten. Now, they used to already have a covenant, and God had made that covenant. Just like a conversation requires two people, commitment requires two people. So if you see in the early books of the Bible, God is finding his people, he's calling them, he's giving them promises and all those things. But many of them are not faithful. So that was a one-way commitment, right? God's committed to them. They're not really all that committed to God. So that was a one-way commitment. Now you can see the Israelites are trying to find God. So they're making the commitment. They're taking that step. Now you can see that they know, oh, the source of my success was this thing that I forgot. I left it in the past. I thought it was unimportant. I thought what I have now in my hand, that's what's important. So other things, and particularly when it comes to the things that God has given you, sometimes they might be attached to pain and suffering, and you think, well, I should just forget that. So repeatedly in the Bible, God is speaking to the Israelites and reminding them, well, remember you were slaves and I brought you out. Well, maybe I don't want to remember that I was a slave. I want to pretend that never happened. And if any of you remember when you took history class in high school or college or whenever, the way that history is taught very often, at least in America, actually no, also in India, because I went to school there, they teach you different events that took place according to a linear narrative. So this is what happened in the 1800s. This is what happened in the 1900s, right? So everything goes in an order. So it's implied that an event happens, it's gone, and a new event happens, and that's gone. Then a new event happens, and that's gone. So the way that we understand history, which is completely a wrong way to understand it, is that these events occur and then they're in the past. When really history is just a cycle. It repeats itself. The mistakes we made before, we make them again. The problems we had before, we have the same problems again. The fights that we have, we make the same fights again. So it's really something circular. So for us to understand how it works, we'd have to see the patterns, right? Oh, the last time this happened, these are the things that went wrong. So the next time we see it happening, we should try to fix those problems. That means you cannot forget the things of your past, right? Last week I was showing a documentary to my students. They're 16, 17. They were born here and they grew up here, and they've been through the same school system, which I too went to. And so in the middle of the documentary, it was showing the different presidents. So it was showing Lyndon B. Johnson. So I just simply asked them, I was like, so guys, who's that guy? And then I was really shocked because they looked at the video and they were like, I don't know, some guy in a suit. Maybe he's a president. I was like, yeah, well, which president? I don't know. Okay, but you learned about him before, right? Lyndon B. Johnson? I don't know, sounds familiar. Okay, so the next guy that comes on the screen is Nixon. Now everybody knows Nixon. So I said, you guys know who that is? I don't know, some guy. So the conclusion that I came to is that whatever they had learned, they recognized the names. They didn't really retain that information because like most of us, they understood that as, well, it happened in the past, right? I just need to know that to pass my test, and then who really cares? That happened a long time ago. It doesn't affect what's going to happen right now or what's going to happen in my future. It doesn't change my life to know which president is which or what they did or whatever it might be. So you can see in verse 6 here, it says, my people have been lost sheep. Their shepherds have led them astray and caused them to roam on the mountains. They wandered over mountain and hill and forgot their own resting place. Okay, now if there are shepherds and sheep, the job of the shepherd is to take care of the sheep. So it doesn't make any sense that it's the shepherds that got the sheep lost. Maybe we think, oh, well, this is someone's giving me advice or is mentoring me or showing me the right way to walk. So they know all the answers. But if the advice is, well, forget what you knew in the past. Forget the things you did before. If this is the advice, well, it's wrong advice. It's working like amnesia. Now you're wandering. You can't find even your own house, right? So if you see, for example, people that are very old who sometimes get dementia, a part of their brain starts to erase their memories. So the very basic things of life they forget. Sometimes they will go outside the house and they might just be wearing their pajamas. They will walk away and then forget what their name is or where they live, right? These are things that we see happen quite often because that access to their past memory is suddenly lacking. Now their whole life is in danger because they forgot who they were and where they're from. Similarly, you can see the sheep in this little story. They're following a shepherd. You know, it might seem to you like you're doing the right thing. There's a shepherd, I'm a sheep, we're on the pasture, we're going somewhere, right? It seems like everything's okay, but what do you remember of your past relationship with God? What do you remember about who you used to be and how you got here? Are you doing those same things? Did you leave some things behind? Because in this scenario, the sheep have a shepherd, but they're just wandering. They don't even have a resting place. They don't even have a place to stay. So if you're this person, the way you would know it is, you don't really understand what your life is about. You get up each day, you do the things you're supposed to do, but you don't really see where anything is going. It seems like you're going in circles, right? It seems like something's missing. It's like the person with the erased memory. What's my name? Where's my house? Who are the people that I live with? These things you used to know, now you don't know. And if you're a sheep wandering, you're easy prey. It's very easy for the wolf to find you, right? Because you don't know your resting place. You don't know your pasture. You don't know the place that you're supposed to be protected. So this amnesia you have about the past, whether it's deliberate or accidental, is affecting your life right now. You don't really see where things are going because you have cut yourself off from the memory of who your God used to be. Now, even the basic things like, where is the holy city of Zion? Where is my resting place? Who's the real shepherd? Even those basic things are lost to us because we don't see that the past is connected to the present, then the present is now connected to our future. So let's look at Mark chapter 6 to see an example. Okay. So I think everyone knows the story. This is the story of how John the Baptist died. Now, before this party, you can see there's a verse a little earlier that explains that even though Herod had John the Baptist jailed, he went to listen to him every day. Every day he went and attended his lecture, right? What he had to say, he paid attention to. He was confused by it because he had locked up this guy, but he still wanted to hear what John had to say. He still knew that he was a holy man and he was valuable. He had no intention of killing John. Who knows what he intended to do at the end? But he just kept him locked up there. Now there's a party. Everyone likes parties, especially if someone else is throwing the party, because you don't have to do anything. You just have to show up as long as you're invited, right? Everything you have access to and everything is available. And this is a king's banquet. So nothing is going to be held back from you. And if you look at Herod at this party, and it's not probably just because he was drinking, he has no memory of anything before this. And the way that you know that is because he's so caught up in this party when he has Herodias, his daughter, dance. It says that he's so happy about the dance that he says something that anybody who's ever read any fairy tales knows you would never ever say, which is, ask me for anything you want. Why would you say that? When you know, if you were thinking, you know, oh, her mother hates John the Baptist, so I have to protect John. If he was thinking of the past, he would never have said, well, ask me for whatever you want. He would never have been so willing to give over almost half his kingdom to this random person who just did a dance. But you might think, well, that's foolish and I never do things like that. But it's not really true. Because we lack our connection with the past that we have with God, because we don't remind ourselves of the benefits of following this God, because we see it as a burden to show up and serve this God, in our day-to-day life, we very often make this compromise because it's a king's banquet. And you think, well, shouldn't I have it easy because I've had it so hard? Shouldn't it be easy for me now? And There's no memory at all that there's this guy named John who you have been listening to all this time, who you know is a servant of God, who you know should be the exception to this rule that you're willing to give this person everything. You know, you might be willing to help somebody or take care of somebody or make an alliance with someone, but be careful about how far you're willing to go in allegiance to this person. Have you already sacrificed the most important thing that made you who you are today, which is your relationship with God? Because that's usually the first thing to go, you know? The first thing that we give up when we get too busy, when we have a lot of overtime at work, when we have a lot of friends who need things from us, when we have family members asking for things from us, the first thing we give up is our relationship to this God, even though it's the relationship to this God that got us this far. But you know, it's a king's party, so we want to act like a king. So we want to have control over everything that's at this party. We want to show all our power and say, whatever you want, I got it. I can do it. Whatever it is, I can get it done. I have the ability. All right, so what does she say? So let's read verse 24 down a little bit. Okay, so if you notice, this daughter of Herodias, she had a plan when she came into the party. She didn't just simply come for a dance. She already had it worked out that when he gives me this possibility, I'm going to go back and ask my mother. And she does. She goes to ask her mother, what should I ask for? So she's not thinking like the king. In the moment, I'm willing to give up everything. No. She's been planning for some time that she should have the head of John the Baptist. In this scenario, who's the fool? After all, we're willing to give up whatever is important to us at a moment's notice when we see things going our way. At a moment's notice. No thinking involved, just amnesia. Oh, I don't need to do that. I don't need to go to church. Maybe once in a while I'll go. But right now I got to worry about this. This is important to me. So quickly we shift allegiances because we're the kings giving the party. But the person who came in there determined to take you down, she had a long-term plan. And her plan was linked to the past. It's been a while since Herodias has decided that she's going to get rid of John the Baptist. She was just looking for the right time and the right place that she could do it. So now here comes the daughter to ask, well, what should I ask for? The head of John the Baptist. And if you see, this is not a story of a great battle. This is not the story of great warfare. This is not the story of a siege that went on for 10 days. This is a simple matter. She asked for his head, and 2 verses later, you see, the king goes, all right, go get it. Just as easy as that, John the Baptist's life is over. His head is handed over on a platter to Herodias, who's been waiting for some time to get this exact response. Now, the most important thing here is that the reason all of this happened is not because Herodias was a terrible person. She might have been. It's not simply because John the Baptist, this was the end he was meant to have. That might be true. But it's very simply because Herod, at his party, forgot everything about what made him him. It only took a moment. It didn't take years. It doesn't take us years to give up God. It only takes a moment, 30 pieces of silver. It only takes a second. And that erasure that happens in our head, it's astounding how effective it is. It's like we set fire to our own house to watch it burn. And later there's this moment of stunned kind of feeling. What did I just do? What just happened? But nobody else did that to us. We did that to ourselves because we erased what connected us to the past. And there's only the present for us now. But now there's no more John the Baptist. And remember, this party will end. And then what? And then you'll have to deal with the consequences of what you gave up on a head on a platter. You know, the term a head on a platter, which comes from the story, implies not only that you sacrificed something, but that you did it so publicly, like you're proud of it. You put it on a platter. You put it for people to see, right? That you were so weak that you gave up something in the heat of the moment, thinking it shows your power when really it just showed your weakness. Something is missing. Now, who are you really? Because this thing is completely wiped from you. Something temporary became something completely permanent. Now, on the other side of things, this is right after the story. Let's read verse 30 down. Okay, so right after this happens, you can imagine that both Jesus and his disciples are very distressed. John is, after all, Jesus' cousin. So now, because they've been working so hard and so overwhelmed, so Jesus is telling them, let's go. Come with me by yourself to a quiet place and we could get some rest. Okay, sounds good. That's what we need, right? We need some silence. We need some quiet. We need to think. We need to grieve, right? Okay. Let's read verse 32 down a little bit. Okay, so the story about Herod that we read, Herod was throwing the party. He had plenty of food, plenty of drink, plenty of entertainment, everything he had access to. If you're invited to that party, you have it pretty good because you just need to show up and everything is given to you. He's not a good person. He just killed John the Baptist. On the other hand, we have Jesus and his disciples. They're poor, they're needy, they're distressed. And Jesus is telling them, let's go somewhere where it's quiet, we could rest. But that didn't work out because a whole bunch of people showed up. And Jesus, rather than dismissing them, tries to help them. Now, if you were the disciples, as nice as it sounds as a story in a book, if you were the disciples, you're probably pretty irritated right now. You just want some time to yourself. You're not asking for a lot. You're not asking for a king's banquet, and you have nothing. And here are all these people, and they're hungry. So they tell Jesus, look, we don't have anything, so let them go eat some food. We can't be responsible for them because we have nothing to give. The reason that we drop our allegiance to God is very simply because we're tired of feeling empty all the time. My pockets are empty, and still you want me to give people things. I don't have any help, and you want me to help somebody else. Everything I have to do out of emptiness, and it's really hard. So once in a while we say, Jesus, let them take care of themselves. There's only so much I can do. I can't do this work. And yet you can see Jesus telling them, you give them something to eat. Okay, there's that king's banquet, and now there's this. There's a lot more people here than there was in the other one. How are you supposed to do this? And most importantly, why is this your problem? You didn't ask for this. You didn't ask for this life. Sometimes you might feel like God has sort of hijacked your existence. There are things that have happened in your life, very likely, that if it was up to you, you would not have taken this road. And maybe you think you know better than God. That you would have picked a path that would have led to a king's party instead of one of these. And maybe you think that's in your best interest to be there rather than to be here. But think carefully about everything that we have heard so far. And think carefully about what Herod lost at this party of parties. And now here's Jesus telling his disciples, well, I need you to help them. And why did Jesus help these people when he was in need of help himself? You should have left them there, right? You should have gone off into hiding, right? Basically, Jesus' teachings here, and make no mistake, this is very true about the Word of God. It's not simply an idle conversation. Don't think that the work of God that you do in whatever form is something so small that without it nothing would change. Because that's the first thing we tell ourselves. Oh, I don't need to do this anymore because nobody really needs this, right? They don't need me to play a music or to clean this room or give this money. They don't really need that. Without it, nothing would happen, right? If Jesus didn't help these thousands of people, maybe it's nothing. I have to take care of myself. I have to go off and do my own thing. You might think so, that this is insignificant. Maybe Herod thought at his party, when he says, I'll give you whatever you want, that there's no way that could have backfired on him. But think again about your past and its connection to where you're standing right now. Is it really true that this is not your responsibility? Is it really true that when God told you to do something, He doesn't have 100 things behind it? That He's not doing His work in 100 ways you can't see? And are you willing to dismiss that so quickly? After all, you can't see it. You don't know about it. You don't know that these people didn't come to have somebody talk them off the ledge and tell them there is a reason to hope, that there is somebody that can help them, that they don't have to have their head end up on a platter, that there is another way, that there is a past that they had with this God, that there's something important there. Now He's saying, go get something to eat. And they're telling him, well, that would take 8 months of a man's wages. Are we to go and spend that much on bread and give it to them to eat? Okay. Now let's all think mathematically. If we had to get something that requires 8 months of us working, obviously none of us are buying that today, right? None of us are wealthy enough for that. So we have to plan ahead. Okay, in 8 months, I think I could get that. In 8 months. But I have to save all my money from now till the end of 8 months, right? This is our plan for the future. In 8 months, I'm going to have enough money. Then I could feed these people. But not right now, right? So you're projecting into the future. Now think about all the times that we do this. When we make these plans, we assume everything we have right now is going to stay there till 8 months are done, right? So I have a job today. In 8 months, I'm still going to have a job. Therefore, I will have the money in 8 months, right? Isn't that the assumption? Everything I have today, I will have in the future. How do you know that? How do you have any guarantee that that's how life is going to work? How can you assume that everything in your hand right now is something that will be there in the future? Because Jesus is telling them, well, you have to give them something to eat, and you're running on empty. But the disciples who have traveled with Jesus all this time and seen Him heal the blind, heal the deaf, bring back the dead, who have seen all these miracles, should have been able to connect their past to their present and say, well, I don't have anything, but I've seen you do other things, so maybe you could do something here. They should have been able to say that. We should be able to say those words too. Yet, when we face a problem, our first reaction is never that. Our first reaction is almost always, well, God, why would you do this to me? One more time, here I am. I'm running on empty, you're telling me to give somebody something. I have nothing at all to offer, and you're telling me go help this other person. Why do you always ask me? I'm not a king in a palace. Why do you always come into my pocket? It's already empty. But He didn't really ask you to give out of your emptiness. He was just asking you to remember that in the past, He gave it to you. And in the present, He could give it to you. In the future, He can give it to you. Instead, you're planning about your life. Oh, in 8 months, we will have enough money, and then in 8 months, we could feed these people. Did God ask you to do something in 8 months? Or did He ask you to do it right now? Maybe you think, oh, one day, everything will be settled, all my problems are over, and then I will do something for God. Good luck with that. If this was true, God would have met up with us 8 months from now instead of now.